Pakistani government says it's seeing a new influx of Afghans trying to get away from the Taliban takeover. Well, now Pakistan is calling for an international conversation about how to manage the unfolding humanitarian crisis. Pakistan is offering help to foreign journalists, for example. It's offering a lifeline to journalists stranded in Afghanistan by relaxing its visa rules to those who want to leave. Well, my next guest is Muhammad Yusuf, the National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister of Pakistan. He joins us now from Islamabad, Pakistan, via Skype. And, sir, a very simple question to you at this point. Do you expect a Taliban takeover of the entire country?
Thanks, Becky. I don't know. All I can tell you is Pakistan is very, very worried because we are the only country, apart from Afghanistan, that cannot afford a protracted conflict. We have been the victim of this war next door for over 4 decades. Over 4 million refugees in Pakistan, still in Pakistan. Societal distortions that came here, millions of displaced people in Pakistan, which we have suffered again and again, even though the world does not want to acknowledge that. For us, a protracted conflict is simply not an option. That's why, unlike many other countries who are talking about, oh, this will go through a conflict and then maybe we get to peace, we are saying reinvigorate the political settlement effort. The US must take the lead. Pakistan will do whatever it can, but the world needs to come together to find a way to stop the violence. And the only way to do that is an inclusive political settlement in Afghanistan. Afghans are dying every day, and I'm sorry to say, but a lot of times the Western conversation treats them as commodities. These are people who deserve peace. Pakistanis are people who deserve peace. We've lost over 80,000 people, Becky. We've $150 billion lost in the economy. Our people can't take it anymore. We feel very worried with what is happening, but even more worried when we hear that maybe the mistakes of the 1990s are being repeated. Maybe the US and the West are checking out, and maybe the world doesn't care anymore what happens to Pakistan and this region.
Let me put this to you. Afghan leaders, including President Ghani, have accused Pakistan of actively supporting the Taliban. And we hear this across international circles as well. Hashtag Sanction Pakistan is even trending in Afghanistan, suggesting those sentiments are shared by a significant portion of the Afghan people. Just how would you describe Pakistan's support of the Taliban?
First, let me talk about the sanctions Pakistan, because just 2 days ago, I did a press conference in Pakistan showing data that 65% of what was said to make that hashtag was bot activity. The rest was Afghan and Indian accounts propagating that. It was all made up, Becky. So that said, let me get to the question of the Taliban. You see, we have heard for a long time, oh, Pakistan is the problem. Today, don't listen to me. Just look at the ground reality in Afghanistan. The running government, what have they been trying to absolve themselves of? An army that doesn't fight for them, a country where they don't seem to have any legitimacy, people who are standing behind an opposition, a fighting force, and celebrating their coming in. If there were any sanctuaries in Pakistan, that's the question that is always asked. Tell me, it defies logic that the entire region of Afghanistan that has fallen to the Taliban initially is the north, bordering the Central Asian republics, and the west, bordering Afghanistan, hundreds of miles away from Pakistan.
Let me ask you this.
Let me just say.
Let me put this to you. Hang on. Let me put this to you. Is it true that Pakistan permits the Taliban leadership on its territory, its wounded warriors? And this was, this has been written about in an article today, and people have talked about it for a long time, receive treatment in Pakistani hospitals. Are you sitting here today and telling me that that is simply not true?
I am telling you that if there were any Taliban of note in Pakistan, this was the moment they would have crossed over into Afghanistan and taken the south and east of Afghanistan. That's been their stronghold in the past. None of that has happened. Why? Because these people are not here. Becky, 70% of Afghanistan is in their control. Afghanistan is the safe haven. They've got the entire territory. So let's end this blame game. Pakistan has hosted, as I've told you, millions of refugees. We have lost thousands of people. Pakistanis feel insulted when we hear do more. After everything we've done for Afghanistan, we are still willing to do for Afghanistan. The worry is that the world may have just washed its hands clean of the mess that's been created. I am seeing Western media and press rightly and courageously talk about what happened to the trillions of dollars. That's where the failure is. But let's forget that. Where do we go from here? Pakistan has played a constructive role throughout. And today I'm saying again, history will judge us very, very poorly if we don't make every effort to get all Afghans to the table and see if we can find a political end to this war. My Prime Minister Imran Khan is the only Prime Minister who said for 15 years regularly that there is no military solution. There is only a political solution. Everybody agrees today. But even now, I'm sorry to say, the Afghan government is not cooperating, it seems, because even their team that's sitting in Doha is not empowered to negotiate.
Let me put this argument to you then. Let me put this argument to you then. The security establishment in Pakistan plays a double game. I hear this from sources again and again and again. Outwardly looking to, and it has to be said, and we'll talk about this, the leverage that Pakistan feels it has because it does have contacts with the Taliban, its leverage in the potential for a negotiated settlement here. And we will talk about that because that's incredibly important. You started this conversation with that. And yet the secret harbouring of Osama bin Laden in the past and the relations that same security establishment has with Taliban when it suits that security establishment to play a game on Pakistan's behalf in Afghanistan. I just want to put that to you, this sense of a double game. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, because, I lived in the US for years and heard this all the time. First of all, let me just say, once again, Pakistan lost thousands, 80,000 on the hands of who? The Pakistani Taliban. Where do they sit? They sit in Afghanistan. Use Afghan territory in collusion with the Indians to attack Pakistanis. We would have to be mad, nothing short of that, if we think that we can play any double game where Pakistanis are dying. That would mean we don't care about Pakistani lives. I am telling you, we care about not only Pakistani, but Afghan lives as much. That's why I'm questioning this idea that, oh, let there be conflict and then we'll figure it out. Or we are done, Pakistan can deal with the mess. Let's deal with this problem as it is. There is no double game. I've told you, if there was any, wouldn't the South and East fall if there were people in Pakistan? Wouldn't there be celebrations? We are saying we're extremely worried. We've gone public. We have said we are not for a forceful takeover. What else? We have fenced our border completely. Becky, this is an important point, if you allow me. If Pakistan was the country where people were going from, why would we fence our border completely, ask for biometrics on the border, and the Afghans refused? They opposed fencing the border. Whose sincerity should be questioned? If they were worried about people crossing over, they should be the ones excited about the fencing. It's the opposite.
Let me talk about that border. Let's talk about that border. What is going on at present? And as far as you understand it, is the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan still out of Taliban control at this point? And you have said that you are offering safe haven to foreign journalists. What about Afghans? What about Afghan journalists, for example, whose lives are at stake at this point? Let's just be clear about the offer that Pakistan is making at this point.
First of all, the border. This border, about 2,600 kilometers, 1,600 miles, has always been porous. 20 to 25,000 people cross over every day. So when there is a question on who crossed over, is there an undesirable person? Whenever there is any question, you find that in the Afghan refugee settlements of millions, you find some undesirable activity, then we are blamed for it. We asked the world for years and years, please arrange a dignified repatriation of the refugees. There is no response, but the blame comes on Pakistan. What have we done to answer this? What we have done is we fenced the entire border. We have then asked the Afghans to put biometrics so that both of us can see who's crossing. They refused. We then said, let's do joint border management. They refused. We have said, let's go to a formal visa regime because traditionally people just used to cross with a small ID card. They are opposing that tooth and nail. Every single thing. We've even gone to the extent of saying, you have a problem, come to us, we'll sit, We'll go to the place in Pakistan, show us what the problem is. No response. Becky, enough of scapegoating. Please don't blame the victim. The reality today is naked. The problems were always in Afghanistan. We are seeing those problems play out. I don't remember any time in history and such a fight would happen where everybody would surrender after $1 trillion gone into this. Let's focus on how to fix the problem. We still think it can be done through a political process, but only if the US takes the lead. Right now, we are seeing people just finding scapegoats. Pakistan is not going to be one. I want to be clear about that.
Let's talk about this then. Go on, please, just very, very briefly. What are you going to do about Afghan journalists, for example, not just Western journalists who may be looking for a way out?
I'm not aware of any specifics on the Afghan journalists or any offer. What I will tell you is nobody has been more generous in housing Afghans. There are brothers and sisters. We would still love to do that, but unfortunately, we do not have the capacity to entertain more refugees. The international community needs to step up. So far, we haven't seen anything. As far as specific journalists are concerned, I'm frankly not aware of any offer from any sort of concern from Afghanistan or any demand.
I want to take a very, very short break at this point because I want to bring you back and talk about what we're going to do or what you believe can be done in any sort of potential for a negotiated settlement. But let's have that conversation after this short break. Stay with me.